Here we are together again for chair yoga. Perch those sitting bones at the forward edge of the seat of your chair. Let your hands move across the top of your thighs, maybe tap it out. Feel your footprints resting upon the earth, sitting at hip distance apart. Balance your weight between left and right sitting bone, and then start to grow that spine nice and tall. Checking for a sense of equality between the space in the front of the chest and your upper back. Let the shoulders hang down on either side of the body, away from the ears. And then when you get to that place where your body feels like it's just found its natural alignment in a place of symmetry, soften any efforting muscles that you encounter within the body. Maybe it's the thighs, even the ankles, or there's some tension in the center of the chest or shoulders. Let your gaze scan across the horizon from left to right, and then come into stillness. Trust yourself to find perfect balance and stillness. Take a deep cleansing breath in. Feel your sitting bones become just a measure heavier. Soften the muscles of your face. Release the lower jaw. Let it hang away from the upper jaw, but remain in alignment with the upper jaw. Soften your gaze. Hold your focus directly forward. We've still got peripheral vision. We can see what's happening, but it's not our focus on the left and right. We're gazing directly toward the horizon, just centering into your body. And we'll warm up with some marching steps, and we're going to do a cross-body march. So we'll let the hands hang on either side of the body. And as you pick up your left footprint, we'll allow the right arm to slide forward and reach toward the horizon. And then as you place your left footprint back to the earth and your right hand to the side body, pick up the right foot and sweep the left arm forward. And just proceed at whatever pace feels natural, normal for your body. And notice how the breath comes along and finds an easy pace. Or maybe you want to let the breath find an easy rhythm before you begin to move. And then let the body follow the breath. And just notice which leadership model follows the way you act in daily living. Is the breath always just coming along for the ride? Or can you relinquish leadership to the breath and its natural rhythm that comes from deep within? Feel your core getting more active. Each time a footprint lifts away from the earth, you can feel your navel center and the entire circumference of your waistband clamping down, activating, pulling the waistband in. Next time your footprints are flat to the earth and hands are to your side body, give those arms a quick shake. We're going to move a little deeper into somatic territory here by complicating the pattern of the arms. We had a simple opposite arm leg, and they were both coming in front of the body. We're going to add a double lift for the leg. So same thing as we were just doing for the first breath, set that leg down and arm, but then the same leg will lift and the same arm will move, but this time it's going to come out to the side. Opposite leg forward and to the side. Switching sides, little tap of the foot between repetitions. Or maybe you're going for strength here and you keep the leg suspended. And as simple as this should be, it takes a little bit of brain power to coordinate. What am I going to do? Am I going to keep the leg pumping in a nice, easy rhythm? Or suspend the leg and keep the arm moving? And my brain messed it up. This is simple movement, but it's a little more complicated for the brain. Next time handprints are resting by your side and footprints have found the earth, tap out your feet and shake your hands. Shake off that challenge. And we're going to practice one more somatic movement. This time we'll see if teacher can get it right. We're going to use the same pattern, but we're going to keep the footprints alternating. And the handprints are going to move front, front, side, side. So again, just a different sequence to challenge our capacity to think and send those commands out to the periphery. So arm forward, and then on the other side of the body, the arm goes out to the side. Arm to the side, and then on the other side of the body, the arm goes forward. I don't care if you get this right. The whole idea is to just attempt to create a fully new pattern of movement. It takes a little bit of a challenge of thinking, what am I doing here? And then once you have it kind of going, then you can start to alternate. Anytime an arm goes forward on one side of the body, the next time the arm goes out to the side, and vice versa as you continue on. This is taking some real thinking. I don't know if I've got the wattage for this today. This is like learning to floss all over again, right? Exhale, come back to a seated posture. We've got your attention. I hope that your attention is anchored in your body. Coming back to a place of stillness in seated mountain. Take a moment to notice any areas of tension within your body. And we'll just pay homage to those areas as we move on, making sure that they get enough movement that some of that tension starts to fall aside. Shaking out the hands and wrists at the side body. Let's take a big welcoming sun breath, bringing to mind any pictures of spring and outdoors that come to your memory. 3 sun breaths, gathering energy, pulling it into your heart. We're going to add leg movement to our sun breaths now. We've been lifting the legs with bent knee. We're going to add on to that. And remember too, just a little side note, it's not about how high you lift the legs or even lift the arms. This is about creating new neural pathways in the brain. So it's your focus and attention that we're really paying into at this point. So we're going to keep the sun breath, so hands to the side body. And as those hands and arms float overhead, lengthen one leg and lift it. And then when the hands come back into the heart, set it back down. Hands return to the side body, opposite leg extends and lifts and comes back down to the heart. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And our intention here is to lift the extended leg as high as we can with core activation without feeling that sense of I'm going to lean my shoulders, neck, and head back to lift the leg. This is not boat pose. We're keeping the shoulders aligned vertically over the hips, so we're really tapping into the core. Big breaths. And the next time your hands float down into the heart, we'll lengthen one leg, let that heel tap onto the earth. If you feel any drag at the pelvis, walk the sitting bones a little closer to the front edge of the chair so that you've got mobility in the pelvis to tilt forward and back as we come into a seated forward fold. You'd like to add that beautiful sun breath that opens up the spine and prepares you to hinge forward. You can add that or just drop your hands to the top of the thigh and proceed into forward flexion. With hands stacked, resting atop your thigh, you might consider adding a bit of cat and cow, some movement of the spine here in rhythm with your breathing. Looking for some stretching here, but we also might decide to maintain some gentle movement. When the body invites you, feel free to move a little deeper into your forward flexion. And I don't know if some of you remember a posture that we do sometimes in a plank pose called lizard. We can replicate that here with our forward flexion. On your resting leg, pick up the toes to actively flex the ankle of the bent resting leg. And then let that knee on the resting leg bent drop out to the side. You might even find that externally rotating and opening the resting leg's hip takes you into a deeper forward flexion. So two options here. You can add hip opening in the resting leg or leave that footprint flat and the knee in a 90-degree bend and just leave it neutral. Big breaths. And then you can either walk your handprints back toward the hip creases or reverse swan dive and bring those arms all the way overhead so the palms align and float to the heart. We'll bring our footprints back flat to the earth, tap it out, sway the knees, and we're ready to give the other side a little stretch. So we'll lengthen out the opposite leg, breathe the arms overhead, float the hands past the heart, stack the handprints atop the thigh, and bring the shoulders, neck, and head forward. Initially just sinking into forward flexion, feeling some awakening in the low back, perhaps a little bit through the thighs, hamstrings, and if you're flexing the ankle joint, probably even in the calf muscle of your extended leg. Holding the spine neutral and continuing to breathe in a nice, smooth, easy rhythm. At this point, you can decide if you want to add in the lizard stretch. With the grounded resting leg, pick up the toes, activating the ankle into flexion, and then let the knee, the bent knee, fall away from the body. Just finding your resting space, your place of comfort here. Forward flexion over the extended leg and gentle hip opening. We've got a combo pose here, two poses at once. Keep the navel center active, and if you'd like, you can reverse swan dive or simply walk those fingerprints back toward the hip crease. When the thumbs find the heart, bring your footprints back flat, wave the knees from side to side. It's been a little while since we've stretched the tops of the thighs, and that's an important muscle to stretch. The quadriceps are so strong, and they can get really tight as well. So we'll spin our knees around to one side, leaving the thigh bone of one leg attached to the crosswise seat of the chair, and the opposite sitting bone is falling off the front edge of the chair, and we're going to let that knee just drop straight down into gravity beneath the hip. So you've still got about a 90-degree bend in both legs, and you can hold on to the backrest of the chair for stability to keep the shoulders stable over the hips. You can even grab on with both hands if that gives you more stability. That adds a little bit of twist. We're not headed there just yet. But in this posture, either with the knee directly below the hip or slid back behind by activating your glutes and hamstrings, press the top of your foot firmly into the earth behind you. Give the hip flexor a little stretch along with the quadricep. Some of you will feel that stretch with the knee directly beneath the hip. Others will have to venture further back behind in order to initiate that quadricep stretch that we're going for. You can place your resting fingertips into your low back and focus on broadening the chest, stabilizing the shoulders and the hips, and just finding some deep, easy breaths here. You want to add just a little bit of challenge and interest to this posture. You could start floating the forward footprint. Keep the back foot, top of the foot pressed into the earth, and then you can work through the ankle on that forward foot. Draw some circles, both directions. Keep a steady hand on the backrest of the chair for stability if you decide to float that forward footprint. Of course, it's an option to just leave it resting upon the mat as well. I think we'll call this our flying splits. Lots of different activities available here, working through ankle, using core strength, stretching, and engaging. When you're ready to move on, use your core strength to pick up that back footprint and bring it all the way forward. And with both footprints resting flat to the earth, we'll grab a simple spinal rotation here. Tall seated posture. Just going to bring the hands to the backrest of the chair and rotate the spine, bringing your heart center more into alignment with the wall behind you. Both legs bent, footprints flat to the earth. Don't forget to pause here and take some nice deep breaths. Use your hands to slowly unwind the spine, especially if one sitting bone is still floating. Be careful. And spin those knees all the way back to neutral seated mountain, rocking from one sitting bone to the other, finding your space at the forward edge of the seat of the chair. Take at least one deep cleansing breath here in neutral before we shift to the other side. When you're ready, walk your footprints around. Free one sitting bone from the seat of the chair and position the back of the other leg's thigh crosswise on the seat of the chair. Holding on to the backrest of the chair for stability of the upper body, we'll pick up the floating sitting bone's leg, point the toes, and place the top of the foot down onto the earth, carefully positioning the knee directly beneath the hip. For some bodies, you'll already be feeling a nice lengthening in the quadricep and a little tug at the hip crease from the hip flexor. If you're not feeling that yet, pick up the top of the foot and slide it further back behind you, but then actively press into the top of the foot. We're using strength and stability here in the bent leg, or the back leg, to feel that lengthening in the front of the thigh. You can place your resting fingertips in the low back, hold onto the outside edge of the opposite resting leg's knee, or even reach both hands to the backrest of the chair, wherever you feel the greatest amount of stability. And we're actively pressing into the footprint. Remember, this gives us a little bit of PNF stretching. If you actively push into the top of the foot and then soften, you might even find that to get the deeper stretch, you have to move your toes further back behind. Press down actively. We're stretching the quadricep and the psoas, and then softening in to see if we can lengthen that muscle and soften it a bit more. Remember our other option here, if you've got your hands stable and you want to play with the forward leg, you can pick up the footprint and point through the toes, flex through the heel, draw some circles. Feeling a sense of activation pretty much throughout the entire lower body. Where do you feel stability? Where are you sensing movement? And the breath better be one of those places where you're sensing movement. We are efforting here, but not enough effort that it actually unconsciously suspends the breath. Keep the breath flowing, and if you're struggling with that, back down. With an inhale and a strong core, pick up the top of your foot behind you and sweep the foot forward so that both footprints find the earth. If you can leave one sitting bone floating, or you can scoot over so that both sitting bones have grounding on the seat of the chair. And from this sideways angled tall mountain pose, we'll turn our heart center toward the back of the chair, attach, and create spinal rotation in the low back. Be sure to pause here, softening the shoulders, sensing into the breath, maybe wiggling and softening your toes. And then with an inhale, let your gaze scan the horizon and come all the way back forward, perching your sitting bones at the forward edge of the seat of the chair. Let's take some breaths, maybe 3 of them. And with that third sun breath, soon as the hands come together overhead, we're gonna let the forearms cross and the fingers reach for the opposite elbow. What a beautiful frame for your smiling face today. Hold those elbows up as high as you can, directly over the shoulders, and we'll come into a seated crescent moon. Stay very conscious of the sitting bone that you are leaning away from. Because if you start to feel your weight drop into the other sitting bone, that's your stopping point. We're holding those bent arms as far back. We're retracting the shoulders here. And you'll probably find that your lean into the side is somewhat inhibited with the arms overhead. We don't want to redistribute weight through the sitting bones. We're simply trying to open the side body. Inhale back to neutral. Take a cleansing breath, soften, and then exhale to the opposite side. And again, as soon as you feel the weight shifting into your other sitting bone, that's your stopping point. Just enjoy the stretch, take it in. And then coming back to a nice tall neutral spine, you'll have the option here to leave your hands and arms overhead, or return your handprints to rest on the side body. If those arms are just feeling way heavy, send your handprints back to your side body. You might even change your orientation of grasping, just to make sure we've explored every sensation here. And from this posture, we're simply going to take a flexion hinge forward and then back up tall. If you're feeling really confident here and strong, you can even lean back into extension. We're just finding a range of motion here where we can lean forward and come back tall, or lean back, using your core, hands overhead or hands resting on either side of the waistband. Forward and back, much like a pendulum, finding a nice easy rhythm that matches your breathing. Putting those hands and arms overhead really changes the distribution of weight when you lean back and lean forward. We're just giving our core a little extra challenge if that's available in your body today. And the next time that you come back to a nice tall spine, release the hands and arms to the side body. Ooh, boy, there's some tension there in the neck and shoulders. See if you can dissipate that, if it's also accumulated in your shoulders, neck, and jaw. Sometimes when we accumulate tension in the body, all it takes is the intention to let it go. So shake it off. Roll it off. Or drop it. From here, we're gonna imagine that the spine is sitting inside of a giant funnel. And with hands resting atop the thighs, sitting at the side waistband, or extended all the way overhead with fingers steepled, we're gonna draw the length of the spine along the inside edge of that imaginary funnel. All of this movement is happening deep into the lower abdomen and pelvis. Strong core, definitely taking advantage of the inner and outer obliques, along with the transverse abdominis. If you choose arms overhead, make sure that the biceps and the ears are making friends. And see if you can keep your knees, ankles, and feet, and especially those toes, relaxed. Use your core to stabilize this rather than your legs. And don't miss the opportunity to reverse direction. And of course, if you're starting to feel fatigued, bring the hands back closer to your waistband or make smaller circles. Our intention is to stay with the target muscles. And once we get fatigued, we tend to get a little sloppy and we just activate whatever muscles nearby to keep making this shape, this movement. But it's actually more important that we stay with the target muscles and compensate in other ways. Coming back slowly into stillness. If your hands are overhead, let them find the side body. And again, roll out the shoulders. Maybe some seesaw or a few shoulder drops. Whatever gives you the sense of softness back in the neck, shoulders, and jaw. Let's take our footprints a little wider. Walk the sitting bones up to the forward edge of the seat of the chair if they've found a safe haven further back. And we can lean forward here by bending the elbows or setting your elbows onto the tops of the thighs. Make sure you let the pelvis roll forward here, just so that you've got good, solid foundation. And we'll come back to some rotation of the spine by dropping one shoulder into the space between your footprints. You can let your gaze stay relatively neutral as you move your heart center from one side to the other. Or you can add cervical spine rotation by activating the neck and turning your gaze even further to one side. It feels like you're getting a bigger range of motion when you turn the head, but there's lots of benefit in keeping the neck in stillness if that's uncomfortable. And instead of focusing with your drishti or your gaze, focus with the swaying of your heart from side to side, feeling it along the length of your spine in the torso, more so than in the neck. So there's a difference there, and you can choose which focal point feels like home for your body. The next time you come back to center, we might as well go ahead and have some fun with cat and cow while we're here. Tucking the tailbone, rounding the spine, and dropping the weight of your head. Feel the back side of your torso expand. White space between the vertebrae along your spine on the back side of your body. And then breathing the heart center forward and closer to the earth. Roll your sitting bones back behind you. Push the heart forward and retract the shoulders, letting your gaze gently rise. Neutralize the spine, let your hands drop down into gravity, and a reverse swan dive. We'll bring our footprints back into place, landing in seated upward salute. And we'll lean to one side, arms fully extended. Come back to center, lean into the other side, keep a watchful eye on the sensations of your sitting bones. Don't go too far. And come back to seated upward salute. Hands and arms are going to sweep down past the sidewalls and attach to the backrest of the chair. Walk those sitting bones as far forward as you can. Retract the shoulders to activate the upper back and lean the weight of your shoulders, neck, and head forward into gravity. Big heart opening, stretch for the front of the chest. You can roll the sitting bones back behind you and let your gaze slowly rise toward the sky. Big open heart. It might feel a little uncomfortable simply because this is a vulnerable posture. Your heart space is open wide. Breathe into this expanded chest and just notice what it feels like. Maybe wiggle your toes or shift your knees while you're here. Keep the upper back strong and active. Pulling gently with the hands and arms, use your core strength as well to bring the shoulders back on top of the sitting bones. Let the hands fall down, shake it out. We'll make the transition to standing from our seated posture. You can sweep those hands forward, push into your footprints and slowly rise into standing upward salute. Exhale, let your hands and arms find the side body. Let's take a couple of breaths in breath of joy. I think everybody knows the drill at this point. 3 sips of breath in, breathe the arms forward with the first sip, side wall, second sip, front wall with the third sip, and then a big exhale through pursed lips. You can move a little slower or faster, whatever your breath wants you to do in this moment. What feels right? Do you want to build up some energy and feel that rush of endorphins and adrenaline? Or does it feel good to keep this as more of a big awakening? Stretch, 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 and then coming a little closer to the earth. So slower, faster, big sweeping range of motion, or maybe it just feels good to use a little centrifugal force, a little momentum. Keeping a range of motion a little smaller and just feeling heavy arms. When you're ready, come back to standing mountain. It's always kind of fun to notice that even when the body comes back into stillness, you can feel your energy still moving from that build in momentum. Reposition your standing posture so that you're behind your chair. Standing mountain behind the back legs of your chair. And we'll begin our standing sequence with halfway lift. Letting the hands rest on the backrest. Start taking some steps back until your arms are in full extension. Your footprints are beneath your hips. And your head can easily lower into the space between the gateway of your arms. With the hands and arms resting onto the back of the chair, it's really not that necessary that you draw in the navel center, but I want you to imagine that it really is necessary. If you need help figuring out what that might feel like, pick your hands up off the back of the chair, and I'm guaranteeing you that things will change in your core. So as you're resting here in this L-shaped posture, lighten your fingertips on the back of the chair. Maybe pick up one hand or both and notice how that shifts all the work into the lower body. So we've got to activate the core, splay those heels out toward the sides of your mat to activate the inner thighs and bind your foundation. Pushing down through the footprints, pick up the shoulders, neck, and head, and we'll take an offset stance. Coming into pyramid, offset stance with the feet, railroad track configuration. Hands and arms can stay resting on the top of the backrest. Or if you'd like to hinge or flex at the hips a little deeper, you could walk your handprints to the seat of the chair. Center your hips between the two long edges of your mat and between your two footprints. So side to side and forward and back. Picking up the navel center, keep your shoulders anchored down into the torso. This is pyramid. If you're looking for a little more challenge, we're going to go back to taking the hands off of the chair. So regardless of whether your hands were on the backrest or the seat, bring your hands to your heart in Anjali Mudra. And again, you can feel a giant shift that comes as far as activation of the lower body. But remember, that chair is always there if you need to grab on for added stability. Another option here would be to stack your palms in your low back. It's a nice way to ensure that the chest stays open, our footprints are flat, core is active. Just a little different version of pyramid. Using hands on the back of the chair or just simply rotating with your strength, come back to a standing posture. Reach for the backrest of the chair and alternate your feet. Come back to mountain and then switch sides. Carefully placing your footprints in an offset stance. Center your hips between left and right edges of your mat, the long edges, and between your forward and back footprints. And then decide where you'd like to rest your hands on the backrest of the chair, perhaps walking down to the seat of the chair, or giving yourself the extra challenge of placing thumbs to the heart in Anjali Mudra. This is an important side note for those of you who tend to hyperextend your joints, especially when we're adding in a little more of a strength component here. Make sure you're keeping a little micro bend in the knee joints so that we're not stacking the bones and stressing the ligaments. We want to stay in the soft muscle tissue. Obviously, you have the option to stack your hands in your lumbar spine as well. And just watching the hips stay centered in the crosshairs of length and width. Some strong core work and strong leg work here in pyramid, especially if you've chosen to float the weight of the shoulders, neck, and head. Coming back upright, you can use the back of the chair or brute strength. Floating back up to a standing posture. Bring your hands to attach to the back of the chair if they're not already there. Step your feet together and bobble the knees just a bit so you can dance with your hips a little, just softening things. Might even want to go with a few breaths of a washing machine here. That was some pretty intense leg work, so we just want to soften things up. And from here, the only adjustment we're going to make is to turn the chair around so that now we're facing the seat of the chair. We're going to do a little exercise that's borderline aerobic. I know you're excited. From this position of standing facing the chair, we'll let the hands slide down the tops of the thighs and attach to the chair. So this is optional. If you want to do this, you can either practice lunges here, and we'll go over all of it, or we're going to do kind of a chair version of mountain climbers. So we have the option here. We're hinged over in a halfway lift, and we can either take one foot back and bend the forward knee to find kind of a leaned forward lunge, and then step back together. Pick up the opposite foot, send it back, drop the toes, roll as you push back through the heel behind you. So these are lunges, just stepping back with your hands rolled around the seat of the chair for stability. But if you want to try something a little more active, we're going to bend the knees, lift the heels, and hop the feet apart. And then we're going to use core strength to switch the feet and hop to the other side. I know, we're going crazy today. Hop, 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 hop. It's entirely up to you if you want to do this, if you want to go a little faster. Just make sure it doesn't get sloppy. This is core work, so it's very intentional. I don't want to see bodies bouncing all over the room like we're at a discotheque. It's control. And you can vary the intensity by how far apart you take your feet. I want you to be focusing on using your core and picking your hips up and down. It's not about slam, slam, slam onto the earth. Get a little air time. Use your core. Remember the donkey kicks we used to do at the lounge, where we would do a handstand and we'd kick up? This is the same concept. We're looking for that sense of lightness and lift more than distance apart. Use your core. Keep your shoulders strong. And then when you're ready, come on back to stillness. Standing tall. Feel that energy buzz, though. It feels really good to get a lot of that energy moving. Let's go back to just a few breaths of washing machine to slow things down a little, to say thank you to the body. Coming back to stillness, maybe 2 or 3, breath of joy. And then return to stillness. We'll take a seat on our chair at this time, and you can choose if you want to do this or not. I'm going to face my chair the opposite direction. So I'm facing the back of the chair and taking a seat. And this will work either way. If you prefer to have the back of the chair, the backrest behind you, that's fine too. I like this posture because it forces me to stretch my inner thighs a little deeper than I might if I didn't have the chair turned around, and you'll see why in a second. We're going to lengthen one leg long. Now I'm short and I'm almost feeling like I need to move my sitting bones over toward the extended leg. If you've got longer legs, you may not feel that sensation, but already can you sense how the chair is keeping that bent knee from collapsing in? We've got some tactile feedback here to hold the knees apart. We're going to take the hand on the side of the bent knee and raise it overhead and lean in toward the extended leg. It's a side body bend. And of course, if you're looking for more activation of strength, remove your kickstand hand and wrap those fingers around the raised wrist. But I like how the back of the chair helps me hold the resting leg in place so that knee can't collapse and I can get a little longer inner thigh stretch. Easy breaths. And then come back to neutral shoulders stacked over hips. We'll lean away from the extended leg and use your core strength to bring the footprint back flat. Walk those sitting bones toward the other side of the chair and lengthen out the opposite leg. Leaning your shoulders, neck, and head over the direction of the extended leg. And of course, you can remove the kickstand hand and wrap fingers around opposite wrist. You can feel a little crackle, snap, and pop all the way up to the base of the skull. And then level out the arms. Lean into the bent leg to bring both footprints back flat to the earth. You can finish in seated mountain if the backrest of the chair is behind you. If you have the backrest of the chair in front of you, you might collapse your spine Walk those sitting bones as far toward the front edge of the chair as you can, so you've got space to rest your forehead onto your forearms here, rounding and softening the spine. If you're a little taller, that might almost be impossible. You can rest your elbows on the backrest of the chair and let your hands just wrap around the sides of your skull. Just trying to give ourselves a little support here for a moment of relaxation and deep breath. We'll join those of you that are already in a seated posture with either the knees together or the knees apart. We'll complete our practice with a sun breath, gathering up all the energy you can hold in your extended arms on this beautiful spring day. Let the palms come together and find their way back to the heart. Namaste.